Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 164 on masculinity and the stigma of fear and shame with my guest, Mark Pagán. Mark is the creator of Other Men Need Help, a wonderful, beautiful podcast about masculinity, about gender and identity, and men and their feelings. It's wonderful, and I highly recommend you check it out. Listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Really going to enjoy this episode. We talk a lot about masculinity. We talk about identity and where we fit in and removing the stigma around fear and shame for men through the gentle, fastidious excavation of manhood, masculinity, all of it. So we get into it in this episode. I really enjoyed this conversation with Mark. He is a feely man, and it feels good to have feely men sharing heart to heart like we did. Before we get to the episode, though, I wanted to remind you that this podcast is on Patreon at patreon.com/feelyhuman. And the latest bonus episode is all about my sobriety. I am past my 1 month mark this past week, which feels good, and there's been lots of emotions and feelings, and I explore that a bit with my friend Danae Logan on a bonus episode this month. So if you sign up for $5 a month, you get that bonus episode plus past bonus episodes. I also wanted to shout out a new Patreon supporter, Meg. Hey, Meg. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. You're the best. I appreciate you. I don't know any Megs, so now I know a Meg, and I'm happy to know you. So thank you. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, before we get to the episode, is I've sort of casually alluded to the fact that I've been working on a picture book about feelings, and I've never written a book. Certainly never written a picture book. I've done a lot more sort of fiction writing and things like that, and so it's been a challenge and rewarding in a lot of ways. And I've been working with my friend Lisa Congdon, who she loves the idea, and we were talking about like maybe her being the illustrator, and she's been just so wonderful and supportive. And this week I wanted to share something that happened, which was, we've been going back and forth on like drafts, and I shared, maybe it was like the 5th draft or so with Lisa, and she really liked it, and we thought, okay, now's the time to maybe like send it off to her agent. And I got some feedback from her agent that Lisa shared with me that felt like it was very supportive, but it was like to the point, right? It was like, you need to work on these things, like, basically point out that like I'm a noob, which I am a noob, but like my initial emotional reaction was like defensiveness and just sensitivity. And that lasted maybe an hour, and I was able to kind of like step out of that and look at why that is. And the reality is like, that's such a human thing. You work on a thing, you feel good about it. You feel hope, right? And not to say that like she dashed all my hope or anything, but it is part, it is the game, right? Like that is the industry. That is certainly the tug and pull and push and pull of creativity and creative work and putting yourself out there. Sometimes it's not going to be for people. Sometimes it's going to take more time, and getting back into it and changing things is uncomfortable and weird. And so I wanted to share that with you because I think it was an important reminder for me, and maybe for you, that, sometimes we need to kind of keep plugging away. Sometimes we need to look at something in a different way, or also, I value what I've done so far, and I want to see this through, and so I'm going to continue working on it. And it's hard to take feedback sometimes, and but it's something that we all got to get used to, and I'm grateful that I've had this experience in that, in this new space for me, this new arena for me, and writing picture books. And the reality is that this project may not happen, and if it doesn't, that's okay. I've already really gotten a lot of joy out of the experience, and I hope it happens. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm grateful to be here in that journey and learning the things that I'm learning so far. So wanted to share that with you. That's where I'm at with that. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for being a Feely human. Make sure to leave a rating and review for the podcast in Apple Podcasts. It's a free way to support the show. Please do that. And if you want to support me on an ongoing basis, go to patreon.com/feelyhuman. And let's get into the episode. This is episode 164 on masculinity and the stigma of fear and shame with Mark Pagán. Enjoy. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others, to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am already anticipating the connection of a beautiful new friend because I'm here with storyteller, writer, masculinity explorer, and creator of the hit podcast, Other Men Need Help, Mark Pagán. Hello, Mark.
Hi. Nice to be here.
So happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Mark, before we get to your story, your lovely, wonderful story and your experience as a Feely human, we always kick off the show with an emotional check-in. How are you feeling?
A little anxious. Yeah. I the last two things that are making me anxious happened this morning. Last night I had a call with my mom. We've been doing this back and forth about the holidays. I'm in New York City. My family's in the suburbs, the DC suburbs in Maryland. And so they've been like, oh, what can we do? I haven't seen them in a year. And I, last week I said, here's what I can do. I live with my partner. She's got to stay here. It's like, if we can all quarantine for 2 weeks, get tested, and then I either rent a car or you guys, my mom had offered, we'll come get you and then drive you back to Maryland. I was like, that'll be the thing. But I called my mom last night and we were having to do an unexpected move. And my partner as well is going to be alone during the holidays if I go to Maryland. So I had the hard conversation with my mom about that yesterday, which is tough. It's not just my mom. It's a number of family members in which this is, we're all being affected by this. And then the other side of that, or the side that's connected to all that, is the stress of moving right now. We just had our landlord come up, and I think we're going to have some conversations about our security, which we're not looking forward to.
Oh, the worst.
So,
deposit conversation.
Yeah. Which is like, in some ways, like all of my anxiety, I'm just going to put it over on that side because it feels a little bit more tangible. It's like, well, here's, we can fight this. It's like blah, 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 versus all of this amorphous, existential, all this stuff that's come up this year for so many of us. And, the reality of like the weight of not spending time with family and the guilt, which I don't think is fair that I'm doing or any of us are doing, like, of, oh, well, am I doing the right? Of course, like we're all doing the right thing if it's about keeping yourself and keeping people you love safe.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at emotionally right now.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I'm so grateful that you pointed out the distinction between, on one side of it being like this thing that we humans do, which is like have conversations with tenants or our landlords rather. And then this other thing, which is we're in a pandemic, we're having to deal with the emotions of not seeing our family members, not seeing our friends. And that's all new. It's new versus like this thing that's familiar and we've done before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really curious what some of the oral histories will be, over the next however many years, decades even, but just some of the details. Like I'm hearing a tone in my mom's voice. I'm 41 years old. I've never heard in my life before. And I think it's interesting, these details that or the ways that she's even communicating. And I'm sure things that I'm doing or saying or acting that people might be able to pinpoint easier than I am. But like, I'm not hearing, that voice is not the same voice that I've heard for 40 or 41 years. I can't really say what that is, but it's just different. It's a bit, there's a different weight to it. And there's a different sort of, also patience, an interesting patience in our conversations and the way that she talks to me. And I'm really curious for other people too. I think that's sort of like what we're noticing, not just with ourselves, but also the people in our lives, and also like the random people that are reaching out to us. I've had a few of those throughout the year of like, oh shit, wow. Like we spent a semester together in college.
Right.
I don't have any ill will, but like I wouldn't have expected you to get in touch with me. That's really cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I know for me, I relate to a lot of what you're saying, and I know for me, I've been feeling this just general longing of like, okay, where should I put this longing? And I think the longing is a longing for probably connection, a longing for, a sense of anchoring that I've lost, throughout this time, and certainly a longing for adventure, like.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. I liken myself. Even though like I've done a good amount of traveling, and it certainly has lessened since I've been with Jessica. But I don't know. I feel like I'm at a place now. I'm about your age. I'm at a place now in my life where I feel a need to, always kind of challenging my own. The thing I learned yesterday, challenge it today, right? Like challenge my perspective, challenge, change, like focus on change and growth and those sorts of things. Like that's where my head is at now. And I've been doing a lot of that internally, and bringing that into my own space. But like, I think what can facilitate a lot of that is being out in the world, and that's not happening. Obviously, that's not happening. So I've just been feeling a longing. I've been feeling a longing for a lot of that.
Have you found yourself, we've got a year of our own case studies, our own like personal case studies now, where we can see like, oh, wow, I can look and see like I've really developed this habit, which wasn't in existence in 2019. Have you or your wife about you noticed something that's happened in that absence of adventure? Like you've started to, I don't know, read Jack London books or...
I mean, I'm always reading Jack London books. It's funny that you say Jack London because, like, those are the books that I read as a kid and still I'm drawn to, But I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I think that, I even though like I'm someone on this podcast and in my writing talks a lot about like the importance of sitting with our feelings and just allowing for the feelings to be, it's easier said than done, right? So I've been doing a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of like allowing myself, and sometimes not, sometimes just hiding from them, but trying to allow myself to kind of be in the discomfort of whatever comes up, And I think that I hope that's a lesson some of us are learning during this time is like, because it's all so new, right? Like, because we get, I think humans get comfortable in routines, comfortable in the things that, bring us that sense of anchoring throughout the day in and day out. And then there's a moment where I think sometimes we can take things for granted. We can not see the little opportunities for reflection or exploration when we're kind of stuck in those routines, Have you felt any of that?
Yeah, well, this is probably the closest I can remember being day to day or week to week. Week to week is probably more accurate in terms of the level of being present. Yeah, I'm also, I think the reverse side is I think I'm probably coming back to some old bad habits of holding things and be like, I'll deal with it later. Like I'll just, I've said multiple times, is like, I think what's going to happen, here's what I'll put out there. And I'm going to say this because I know that everybody's barometer for crying is different and there's no judgment. There's some people that are totally emotionally available, but just never cry. Some people that cry a lot. And, there's like, I don't have any judgment. I think we make our own personal assessment on, I think more like the personal assessment should be sometimes like, why am I not crying versus I think generally crying is fine.
Right.
I think I don't know what average is, but I allow it to happen. And this year I've teared up, like we've watched movies. I've maybe heard a song, maybe I've read an article and it's like, it's emotionally resonated and I might tear up, but I haven't cried in 2020. And I think knowing myself that there is a level, there's like a protective layer that's being put on there, which I'm also probably encountering for some ways the first time where it's like, just get through it. It's sort of wartime. It's like the closest some of us have felt. And I don't mean to disparage people that are actually gone through wartime circumstances, but we are, there was a period of rationing or like questioning of rations. There's a period, there's a hunkering down. There is a threat, an imminent threat in which we are all protecting ourselves against, in which we have no designation of when a finale, when a conclusion will be, nor who exactly we can trust in some ways.
Right.
So I think I've just been like, all right, just dealing with it. Like, let's go. Went to the store, got all the supplies, stayed at home. And I think there's going to be some point in 2021, assuming 2021, with the vaccine, with hopefully things getting better, that we start to let our guards down. I feel like there's just going to be that moment where I'm going to drop a glass or something. And then it's going to be like 3 days in bed of like, just, whatever, all of this that's been just held in. So I think for myself, I've both been present as well as, and I'm not seeing anybody, a mental health professional right now, but I would have to assume, I mean, this would be part of my conversation with them is just saying like, is there something I should be doing right now? Or is it just a very human thing to like, when it comes, it's going to come emotionally and you just deal with it. I don't know. I'm assuming this is pretty widespread for a lot of people, but this is also a conversation I haven't had with too many people.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is that, you know, the holding in right now is a bit of like a, let's get through this, a survival mechanism of sorts during this unprecedented time. And then, you know, come 2021, hopefully things are settling down. We have vaccines. We have thank goodness, a new president in the country, you know, like that, those sorts of things. And then we feel a little more at ease, a little more comfortable to kind of let down those guards. Yeah,
it's true. I had this showed up in another Men Need Help episode. But I've been thinking about this moment in my life unrelated to wartime. Although for some of us, we might relate it, but it was getting over an ex. Years ago, I had a long-term relationship ended, and I did the due diligence of like, all right, do what you can to get over this ex. And a lot of it was just distracting myself. And so I was making a lot of food, and I got into this pattern of just getting recipes. And then when I felt something funky in my gut, like something emotionally I had to deal with, I said, all right, time to go cook, time to go get some stuff. And so I was feeling really lonely one weekend. I was thinking a lot about my ex. I did not want to call her. My hand was sort of like going to the phone, like, it's like, don't do that, Mark. Don't do that, Mark. And so I decided to go, I was like, I'm going to make a Southwest salad. I'd never really made one before. And I went to the grocery store, started getting all the items. And I asked the produce guys, I said, I want to use some fresh corn. Do you guys have fresh corn? He's like, yeah, man, I got some in the back. And he came and brought out these bushels, I think that's what you call it, of corn, and then unshucked one of the pieces of corn. He like was taking his time. It's like, I'll just take the corn, man. It's fine. He goes, nah, man. And he he's like, yeah, this man, this, I think they come from Pennsylvania or something, because look at that, man. Isn't it beautiful? And I lost it. I just like right there in Key Food, like I just broke down. And he didn't even know what to do. He just kept talking about the corn. He's like, oh man, this guy's having a hard time. But I've thought about that moment a lot. Like, it's like the pin drop of something that's going to happen for so many of us. I loved what was happening here in New York in the spring. I don't love that it was a ripple effect of what was happening, but I love the communal aspect of like the 7 o'clock ritual here in New York City, where people coming out and clapping for the frontline workers. And I think that actually offered us, there's that release valve. And I would like to see maybe some primal scream days or just something. So that, like, I think the corn incident is fine. That happens to a lot of us, but I'm just afraid that so many of us are going to have that corn or that pin drop moment where we're just, you know, it's just going to be like an individual grief that's just going to consume us for a day or for an hour or 5 minutes or whatever it is, just because we haven't been able to process all of this. And I think the communal aspect is really helpful. This is one of the positive sides. This is one of those few times in history where it is a universal, not to keep using the word grief, but it's a universal experience. And I think
grief is right.
Yeah. And it's like, it offers us the opportunity there's no explanation that's needed, and everybody can give the quiet nod. I think I think it'd be great to facilitate more ways in which we're all just going like, or whatever that is. Maybe it's happening in communities, but I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. It is a thing. It's a collective thing, right? It is a collective experience. And so I feel a need for like, let's come together around this experience and figure it out together, right? Like that is a feeling that I've been feeling myself. I wonder for you, Mark, like I know that there is a usefulness in sometimes putting up those guards, and sometimes like, I don't know what to do here. This is new. Let's weather the storm until it gets, But I think also like in my own experience, I know for myself, like I've been in situations like, for instance, growing up, like I didn't grow up in a very safe environment. And that's what I did. I kind of protected myself. I protected my heart until I was like ready. And then, the floodgates. And it was like, it was a terrible flood. Like it was a scary flood that like almost killed me, to be honest with you. And my hope for you and for people listening and people out there is like, those moments are more frequent, so they're less severe, right? So we have like these more honest, frequent moments with ourselves where we can look at that stuff. We can like look at like, okay, what are we holding in right now? Like, what is this about, right? So we don't have like the moment, like I hear you, the primal scream, that stuff is fucking great. But like, I also think that, we need to like, we need to let the pressure out a little bit more frequent. That, in my perspective. What do you think?
I agree. I think for myself, I would like to have a better understanding of and allow myself the tools to sort of, I would like to find the right like pinprick to do that, to like say, all right, I got stuff here. I got stuff that's sitting in my gut. It needs to come out. I recognize that. And I feel like I'm pretty good at that. What I would like to do is sort of like, excuse the metaphor, but sort of like an emotional enema where it's like, all right, how do I get it out? And there are ways in which I don't know if that's being fair to myself. Maybe it is just reaching out and talking more. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. I always feel like it needs to be exercised like a ghost, or some spirit. But I had a few prompts, like there's the Brene Brown power of vulnerability talk. Somebody showed that to me years ago.
So good.
Whenever it came out, and she said, yeah, I think you would get this. And I was like, I'll take a look. And I watched it. I just sobbed. And it's become sort of this text now where that's one of the prompts where it's like, all right, got stuff bottled up in here. Go back to YouTube. Let's watch that talk again. And it functions in a way, but the incremental pieces of it coming out in whatever way, it's healthy. I have to admit, I'm very guilty of not doing that this year. And I'm, as somebody who does a show that is trying to be as transparent, playful, honest, tender, but about gender and about masculinity, I find myself going to some old ways of some old behaviors, learned behaviors of dealing with something that's out of my control.
Yeah.
And I will own up to that. I have not been as good about releasing that valve more often.
And I didn't bring it up to like call you out or something. Like I think we all experience that. And just so the listeners know, the show that Mark's referencing is Other Men Need Help, which is beautiful. Like it's such a beautiful, look at masculinity and a lot of kind of what we're talking about, which is the beauty of vulnerability, which is vulnerability is, as Brene says, it's like this beautifully connecting, healing force for us if we can find it for ourselves and find out what it looks like for ourselves. When you're talking about like finding those, pinprick moments or those moments to like release the valve a little bit, does creativity do that for you? Does it allow you to do that a little bit?
Yeah, it does. And I think I have even a voice in my head that judges that a bit. And it's probably a cultural voice.
Sure.
And and probably a gendered voice as well. That's like, sure, that's nice and all, but I have to quiet it down still, but it's true. It's very true. I think both the consumption of material is really helpful for me. I was telling my partner Caitlin recently, it might sound egotistical, but I was talking about, we just finished our season of Other Men Need Help, and we were sitting over breakfast, and I'd been talking for months. I was like, I love making the show. I can't wait for this season to be done. I got to take a break. I'm losing my mind. So we took a break, and then I told her this. I was like, there's once I finish, I'm going to want to come back to it, and I know I'm going to have ideas. So we were sitting at breakfast or some meal, and I was talking about some plans for 2021. So there's some Other Men ideas for the next season. There's some other projects. And I said to her, I was like, I'm so grateful that I have ideas. Like, I'm so grateful that the well never feels empty there. The reason that I bring that up, and that I don't think is egotistical, because it also is a balm for me. It is a way to process. It is a way to reflect. It is a way to actually emotionally, going back to this idea of exorcism, it's this idea of emotionally exercising things. And I just had a call this morning with somebody who, it's very randomly, somebody I know called me to pitch a season idea for Other Men Need Help, a thematic season idea. And so we talked for a while, and I do believe this. I think that the creative work that most of us do, it's like, sort of the way I see it for myself is, all I'm doing is, there is a wound that I keep speaking to. And it shows up with different interpretations. So like, this season is about friendship, or this season is about this, or this episode or this project is about this. But roughly there's like the 3 or 4 or the one scar that I keep speaking to. And I think that's fair. And I'm going to go on a little tangent here. That's what upsets me when people say, oh, they made the same movie again, or the same show, the same whatever. They're talking about the same thing. And I was like, no, well, it's not for you to judge. Also, like, we're all processing the narratives of our lives. We're all processing the wounds of our lives. And like, sure, I would love to see, I think that's a beautiful transference to, like, sure, make the same book, make the same movie again and again, or variations of it, because I think that's a way of healthily, therapeutically dealing with stuff. So yeah, for sure. And that's more a recognition recently, like in the last 5 or 10 years of my life, of the creative need as a answer to processing.
Yeah.
And as well as just the need to, like, the just pure joy that comes from creating. Yeah, it definitely is.
I love that. And what I find, very beautiful about the process of creativity and what you're saying, the process of healing ourselves through these creative acts, is we can hold the multiple truths at once, which is, one, we're finding joy in this act of creating and trying to, and talking about the things that are truly transformative and healing for others, and at the same time in our own selves struggle with that. Like, we're taught, like, I know for this show, like, I talk about certain things that I am trying to relay as these, like, beautiful universal truths of healing and things. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I struggle with it. So, like, both things can be true. And I know for myself, and I think you spoke to this a little bit, I feel guilty about that sometimes, but, like, we shouldn't, because we're just humans trying to figure it out as well. We're trying to find our healing paths, all of that stuff. And then I think the other thing you said that I think I would love to ask you about is can you share a couple of those, like, wounds you're trying to heal, those scars you're trying to move forward to or look at more?
Yeah. Well, the the joke, the internal joke I keep making is I'll start working on something, and then the closest people, Caitlin is the closest person in my life, and she's often the one. It's sort of like the breakfast table conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come in, with eggs on the plate and be like, I had an idea. So she's the first one that always has to hear, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But the inside joke is that I'll start explaining something, and then I'll stop myself and go like, well, it's another dead dad story, isn't it? And it's like my father, and I feel like there's, for kids that face whatever level of trauma you face in your when you're young, there's some people that may be able to manage it or compartmentalize it or manage it in a better way. But I think for most of us, it's like whatever those wounds are, it's a constant thing that your brain will need to keep reassessing and examining and answering and healing from. And so one of those big ones for me is the void of my father, both the death itself, his death, and then his absence. And I think there's that. There are the other thing recently that's come up and that I just keep getting reminded of is just cultural identity. The show talks a lot, of course, about gender and specifically masculine and male identity. But the other thing that's just constant bargaining is where do in a especially a country that focuses so much on the binary, not just in terms of like, we're seeing such sort of like violent rhetoric with, a deeper understanding of the spectrum of gender, but even like cultural and racial. I think even like we have a very, the US, even if it's completely, if it's brought on in this, it functions in this way of like looking at the binary in terms of race as well. And for kids who are biracial or bicultural or whatever it is, there is this choice that needs to be made. So I think the wounds are there. Like I'm constantly in search of sort of what is my identity with this decision to, my life, my identity as a man, as well as the sort of the decisions or the questions that I have for being somebody who grew up in a household in which, my mother is North American, my father or American, and my father is Puerto Rican. So those are some of the big things. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, those are the sort of stories I keep going after.
Yeah. And
from there's like a bunch of different spider webs and different arms of like, well, masculine identity, and with cultural racial identity, there's like, I'm fascinated by idolatry, like who we have fixated our idolatry on, or in the absence of this, in the absence of certain sort of male role models, where did that go? And we haven't really focused in our show on things like gangs or sort of group identity, but I am fascinated by that too, and like where we decide to get our identity in terms of membership with certain fraternities, and not just like college fraternities, but like fraternities of men.
Yeah,
so anyway, that's those are some of the sort of wounds and scars. Yeah, I know. I don't know if I'm breaking up a little bit here, but
you were a little bit.
Let me know
if
you can hear me.
Yeah, you were a little
Okay.
bit, but I could still hear you.
Okay.
How old were you when your father passed?
I was 14. So I'm 41 now. So 27 years ago.
And what were you like as a 14-year-old?
Well, I've thought a lot about this, and in some ways my dad died at the worst and the perfect time, because I was coming into that age where him and I were going to really start having a hard time. And so him and I died he died with him having sort of the perfect relationship with me. we had just started sort of arguing about who I was becoming. I wanted to be a lover, not a fighter. I wanted to be a DJ. I was a big hip hop kid. I was dancing at every school party. I don't know, by the age of 14, I don't think I was ever fully, like, I was never a bully. I was never anything like that. I was shy. I was pretty shy, but I loved pop culture, and I was like a little hip hop kid, and was also a bit of I liked, my grandmother helped raise us. My mom, like, I really liked hanging out with adults too. So sort of this dichotomy of being a little, trying to be a little bad boy, but also a little bit of a mama's boy.
Do you, 14 is the age we do that, right? Like, I know for me, around that time I was a shit. I was a little terror, like, and that, that is a hard time for parents, I think. Parents of teenagers. Yeah. It's just a tough time. What is your mom like? Are you close with her? I mean, you said at the top you are pretty close. Yeah.
We, my mom and my dad are very different. There's quite an age gap. And I think that's the other thing too with masculinity, is that I was raised by, my mom is this the right way, sort of like a quote unquote appropriate age for being my mother, in terms of, like, she had me when I was the last of her children. She had me when she was 30. And my dad was in his early 50s when he had me. And so my male, like, the men in my life, and even the children of the men in my life, were all much older than me. So, like, my cousins were aunts and uncles' ages. My dad was super old. All his brothers were super old. And my dad was a pretty, he wasn't docile, but he was the super affectionate one. He had this, sort of what I've considered a bit of like a stereotypical Caribbean male patriarchal figure. What are my stereotypes? Where he would come, he would embrace you, he would sort of hold you. He offered physical affection in a way that other options of fatherhood felt so alien to me. When I hear kids talk about, like, my father never said he loved me, never said he hugged me, he never hugged me. And I just didn't have that with my dad. He was very much the opposite of that. My mom is a little bit cooler. So she's, she wasn't as forthcoming with her "I love yous" and things like that. My mom's sort of like in some ways, she was a bit more of the masculine figure. She was the one that tried to teach me how to play baseball. She was the one that got me in the Cub Scouts. She was the one that was like, you need to do this because this is what, boys and men, you need to be able to talk about sports when you get older.
Right.
Like, even though we don't talk about sports in the house, you need to do this. We've gotten closer, and we've got a very good, I think, shorthand and open way of communicating with one another. And, she had to, I think my dad unfortunately had a hero status because he was the one that he wasn't home a lot. He would travel. And so he'd come home, he'd have the duty-free gifts, and he'd have the money for us. And he'd be like, "Oh, I haven't seen you guys, so tell me what you want to do. We're going to go do that." And my mom is the one that had to take the job, the new job. She's the one that had to deal with all their school stuff. She's the one that had to, and she was a disciplinarian. Yeah. And it was like, for years, like, yo, you were a pain in the ass. And she wasn't. It's just a boy's perspective of, like, dad was a superhero and then he was gone. And then mom had to be the disciplinarian. And so then, once he was no longer here physically, she became, she was a single mother and had to deal with raising a teenage son, which I know wasn't easy. So we've become much closer, and I think our affection. She's my mom. I love her dearly, and I would do anything for her. And but she doesn't communicate the same way that my dad did. But she's gotten better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see, I hear in your voice, such love for both of your parents, and I can also see how, you fast forward, 28 years or whatever, to this point where you're making this show about masculinity, and you had these parents who, sort of, traditionally flipped roles, right? And in some ways, it's interesting. So let's talk about Other Men Need Help a little bit, because I myself, as someone who, does this show, right, and talks a lot about feelings, and being like a very sensitive kid and person today, like these are, and you were talking about crying earlier. I cry all the time. I think it's I love crying. I love it. It's like the best. And at the same time, I do get this question a lot, from people in my space, like, what does it feel like to be a man, and to talk about your feelings so openly, and to talk about your, I almost died of anorexia, like in my late teens and early 20s. Like, what does it feel like to be this person in this space, and to kind of like define these gender norms and constructs? What is, like, for you in doing your show, like, what is your aim? Like, what is like the old, like, do you have like a mission statement of like, this is what I want people to get out of this?
Yes, we do. And it does shift. We go into each season that we do the show, and we say in so many words, the primary goal when somebody enters this show is that it should be entertaining. So we are making a show. We are making something that is something that we would listen to, something that it's a narrative nonfiction show. So it's story based, and people should be walking away going like, there was a story, there was an arc, there was something that, and it's also essayistic. Our quiet and not so quiet, because I mentioned this on interviews and things like that, but our internal mission statement is, it's Sesame Street about men for adults. So the surveying the landscape, my mom, when my dad died, she handed me his electric razor and a subscription to Esquire magazine. She's like, I hope these help. Like, I don't know exactly what to do here.
My God, that is hilarious.
I started from a young age, sort of modeling male identity, and Esquire, moving into puberty and things like that, was one of those things. And so I've been really fascinated. I've been an audience member of the male media landscape forever, and I have a love-hate relationship with it, but a lot of fondness for it. And I think it struggles. I think the publishing industry towards men struggles. I think the podcasting sphere that's speaking towards, and I'm going to speak in some ways in binary terms, and I'm not trying to say this in any way that's not inclusive, but men or male-identified folks. There are different mediums in which have struggled to tell sort of the male experience or reach a male audience. And a lot of it fits within like the box, like sort of the man box, as we say. So when I started the show, and this keeps happening for each season, it's like, what were the intentions? What are we not trying to be? We definitely didn't want to be an academic show or roundtable show where we sat around talking about things and then not being reflective of it. We didn't want to do something that was prescriptive or that was sort of like the men's lifestyle cast. So something that's like, here are 10 things to do to get over your ex, or here are 10 watches you need to buy so that you look like whomever, you know? So there's a number of different tools. The other thing is that we felt was missing was just like tenderness and joy and just playfulness. And I think for me, the first thing is like, gender is a performance. And I think we need to acknowledge the human side of how absurd it is for all of us sometimes. And like the universal side of whatever you're trying to do is that like, it's so human to look in the mirror and maybe have a picture next to the mirror and be like, is my hair okay? I'm trying to do Johnny Depp here, or I'm trying to do, whomever. And there's something so beautifully human about that. And the way that we walk out the door and we try to project something, I think there's the other side of that too, is there's a damaging side to it. There can be a damaging side to our psyche as well as the people that we affect, to try to hold on to these identities. I think our goal and our mission is if the world of masculinity is a big spider web, I think a lot of work recently, especially since 2017, has been very macro focused on maybe investigative work that is looking at sort of like these labels of toxic masculinity. So especially since this current administration that we're dealing with being a big example of that, like the work that's being done to take down the Cosbys, the Weinsteins, the current administration, et cetera, show in which ways like high levels of power are affecting all of us, and high levels, these ways in patriarchy are showing up. And that work is being done. It's really, really important, and it needs to continue getting made. And our show, the problem that I'm finding, or the problem that I think is found in a lot of media, is that it's so disassociative. So you and I are very sort of feeling, thoughtful people. And I'm sure you are probably similar to me, where you do a lot of reflection, and you're like, how much am I contributing or not contributing to something? And for us, the part of what looking at these macro things was like, because of that level of disassociation, it's very easy for just the everyday guy to go like, what our name of the show is like, oh, it's Other Men Need Help. Other men need help. I'm fine. I'm never gonna be a famous comedian like Bill Cosby. And even if I am, I'm not gonna rape people. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not part of the problem. I'm not part of it at all.
Right.
And so our mission is to never, we are not here. This is not a call out culture show. The goal is to talk to sort of like the everyday actions, in some ways like the beta male, and make the connections to be like, we are all part of this, and it's okay. Here's some ways in which, if I, the host, can be transparent, and I'm sort of like your progressive surrogate here, maybe it gives the openness for the self-examination of other just like everyday quote unquote nice guys. So we're not trying to like, in some ways we're trying to break down the self-mythology of the nice guy, not by saying that doesn't exist, but by saying like, we all have work to do, and it's also superhuman. And, just because we're not millionaires employing a number of people and also abusing people physically or, verbally or emotionally, our everyday actions are still a part of it. But also what can we identify, and can we get better at figuring out what our goals were when we were doing those things? So like, I ghosted that person, or I decided to reach out to my ex out of the blue, but what I was really after is like, I just needed some affection. And if I look deep enough, I actually have a number of male friends that would give me that affection. And if I can chip away deeply enough at that, can I get past the cultural shame of asking a man to hold me?
Yeah.
And so I love the challenge. Like, how can we do that? How can we bottle that up in a way that feels like almost like a beautiful, tender adult Sesame Street episode?
Yeah.
So I all of those are sort of like mission aligned ways we think about making our show and making it as, in some ways a Trojan horse. Come in, be entertained, have fun. And then we hope, at the end of the day, you should be entertained. You should leave with a story. You should leave being like, I really enjoyed that. And underneath all that, we really hope there's some reflection. We really hope there's some conversation. We really hope that the season or episodes lead to you reaching out to somebody in your life in a very positive way. And we've seen that. We've seen that to a degree. And that's like, we could hope for more, but that's at least a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so beautiful. And I like to think that, it is changing one heart at a time. Right. And I think that can have a ripple effect in our communities, right? In our relationships. And I think the key is looking. The key is asking the questions. The key is curiosity, looking at the walls, looking at the interiors, looking at the exteriors, all of it is just kind of looking. I think, as someone who's not a therapist or anything, but is in the mental health space, like I think about the stuff that you're talking about, the presentations that we put up, these walls we put up, these cultural burdens we put on ourselves that are killing men, like dying by suicide, right? Like that are really hamstringing us from really feeling the myriad of like beauty that like this world has to offer and relationships and connections have to offer. But there's still so much, and I am so grateful that your show exists to reflect on it a little bit. There's still so much in this world that is about power. It's about competition. It's about me versus them. It's about all these things that, like, in my mind, for me, I just want to maybe sometimes burn it down, but maybe that's not so helpful. Like maybe an approach you have, which is, let's look at it. Let's unpack this a little bit more. Let's unlearn some of these things. But it's overwhelming. There's just so much of it, right? Like we look at the election, right? And we have 70 million people who voted for Trump, right? And like something like that, like overwhelms me and makes me immensely sad. And I think about that, and then I also think like, oh, am I being arrogant? That like I'm like saying that I have this like esteemed or like enlightened position, like I guess the key is looking and being curious and asking the questions and letting go of all these artifices and things that we take on, which aren't reflective of our experience. They're just the things that other people tell us. Right?
Yeah. And you started it exactly right. It's killing us. It's really killing us. And yeah, I think the thing that I've been struggling with, I was going to say something and actually don't want somebody to hear this. So I'll try to mask this a little bit. I've been struggling with something recently that came up with an example of somebody in my life who is a Trump supporter, and something personal that's, God, this is going to be so veiled. Something personal that they're going through that is a thing that you would normally give some level of like, I've been struggling with the grace and
sure. Yeah.
And just personally, like I'm not posting anything. I'm not saying anything about this person. I'm not calling them, being like, you asshole, like, haha, or anything like that. Nothing at all. And even in my heart, I'm not feeling that way. But I'm struggling with the grace and the empathy of like this person who's let's just talk about social media, has been posting these like vehement, these vehement endorsements related to this current president, this administration, and as well like these arms all around it. And I think that's why, especially making something like Other Men, it's like that is the goal that I would like for all of us to have on his side as well. Yeah. This person's side is for, say something terrible happens to me. I know that I actually don't know how he thinks about me, but that he can look past that. Like, this is a human being. And also beyond that, let's get even beyond that. Like, that he can get to levels of reflection and say to himself the way that I can say to myself, maybe I'm wrong sometimes. Yeah. I just like that disassociation that's happening right now, where it's the volume of venom that I think that I project, and I think rightfully so. I'm sorry, but like rightfully so. The volume of venom that I'm projecting, or that I feel like is coming from sort of like the other side of the political spectrum, as well as like the social spectrum. But I think even I'm having a hard time talking to you about it, because I'm like, the mining that we have to do to, if there is going to be there's some balance of continuing in a society, but also some balance of like even listening or some level of positive change. Anyway, I'm finding it with individuals in my life, and it's like I still have so much work to do. Like I'm trying to use this as an opportunity to be like, all right, gotta find the grace, because you're, even selfishly, I want that from other people too. I want people to see like, the things that matter in my life, whether it's my health, my family, my job, things I believe in, saying Black Lives Matter. Like, this is about people in our lives. This is about, a population. Like, these are things I think you should, but like, come at me with some level of at least like a pause of self-reflection. That's, if I can do that, I really want that from the other people too. And
I feel all of that, Mark. Like I've been struggling with the same thing. And I think what it really comes down to is like looking at all of it, all of these things through the lens of other men need help, like what you're doing, which is, like, let's use maybe this example, and there are many of them out there, and say like, okay, like, first of all, saying that I don't have all the answers, right? First of all, saying that I'm fallible. First of all, saying that my goals here, what is my intent? What is my impact? My intent is to connect. My intent is to allow other people to heal. My intent is to really practice real empathy. So what does that mean for this person? That means like maybe there are sides of this person that I'm not seeing. Maybe there are conversations that I need to have. Maybe there's fear involved. Maybe there's insecurity there. Maybe there's buying into this lie that the binary you talked about at the top, this lie that this world is binary, right? And allowing maybe myself to meet this person in more of that gray, nuanced complexity where all this healing does really happen. Finding a way to get there with this person through real practice empathy, because empathy isn't just, putting myself in the shoes of others. Empathy is like the person that you're talking about, like that is where empathy can really happen and work. And it does take both sides. It does take the grace. It does take work. It does take patience, all of it. And I'm not saying it's going to work every time, but I think that's the general work we have to do.
I agree. I agree. I would love to. I think I've a side project. This is not other men in terms of its application, but I would love to see. I I wanted to do this thing, or I want somebody to do this thing where it's like the way that just giving ribbons or awards. I want somebody like on social media or something like that to give like everyday awards to just people on whatever side of the spectrum, political spectrum. It's like today, Bob, the Trump supporter, went over to his neighbors and just asked a simple question about like, how is your wife? Or whatever it is. Actually, let's go a little beyond that. Actually it's more about accountability. It's more like, hey, that's what I'd be so interested to see more examples of. And highlight that from all sides about those moments in which, the other men ribbon of the day award goes to Uncle Charlie, who at the Thanksgiving dinner decided, even though he's vehemently against Black Lives Matter, decided to listen to his nephew, or like decided to say, I can hear your side or something like these little nuggets. And I know how absurd that sounds, and people probably would listen to this might roll their eyes, but I'm like, I'm sorry, we have to start somewhere, and we do have to celebrate. We do have to do more public celebrations of quiet grace, and not, I think we do so much virtue signaling. We call it out in a lot of ways too quickly, but like, our lives are so public now. They're so public, and it's been accelerated in such a small amount of time that I think we actually need to do the opposite thing too, where it's like, number one, yes, we're asking everybody to listen, but we do need to celebrate just like the quiet everyday grace that is happening. Also as an antidote to all of the negative consumption that we're participating in, and we're as well consuming. There are conversations, there are things that are happening. There are things in which we got to say, like, you did a great job, Uncle Charlie. Like that actually means a lot to me. I know how much you think this movement and this philosophy is going to destroy our country. But like, it showed, number one, that you have the dignity to listen, but also you care about me and things that I care about. Maybe we can reach a solution there. So if everybody wants to take on that project, I'm all for it.
I mean, I like the idea. I think even before that, you said the word accountability. Accountable to what, right? Like, I think that you and I may be on the same side of like, okay, we're holding ourselves accountable to this value set, right? And, quote unquote, they aren't, right? They have a completely, so like, what is that about? Like, how do we meet in the middle there? Like, that is, I think that comes before the ribbons.
It's, I think one of the things that we would never put in the language of the show, not because we're ashamed of it, but because I just don't think it's as attractive of like an invitation to what other men need help is that the show is really, I ideally, just culturally, the show, my life, my relationship with men, with, if I raise children in my life as an educator, everything like that is removing stigmas around fear and shame. And especially amongst men, because I think that for historically, besides elements of power and abuses of power and these ideas of maintaining control, fear and shame have literally destroyed generations.
Yep.
It destroys the people in our lives. It leads to violent actions. It leads to self annihilation. It leads to cultural annihilation and immolation. And if just doing like a better job of removing, and as well, like being able to hear, get behind the curtain to be like, the reason that this is being projected, nobody is going out of the way going like, I want to destroy this person. A lot of us aren't. It's just like, I need to put up some armor, man. This something is scaring me, making me feel really fucking wounded. So I'm going to do this thing. So I'm going to be anti-blank, and I think for us, going back to what you asked about sort of the mission, I think overall and having this conversation, giving the ribbons, is that like, listening to what that is, but also removing this like this cultural, just the stigmas that, and if I want to just speak to men, like the stigma around fear and shame, and what that does.
Yeah, no, those are huge. I think a big part of that is like, how do we, and I think you're doing it in your podcast, like how do we create safety? Like how do we make sure they feel safe enough to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because to your point, like many of us don't feel safe enough, right? You know, whether it's because we're in systems that you know, make us feel that shame and fear because like we're not living up to our fathers, or we're not living up to the Esquire magazines of the world, right? We're not living up to, we don't look like Brad Pitt or whatever it may be, right? Like, how do we not buy into all that shit? How do we, and maybe it's just these communities of other men need help, you, me, empathy, these other pockets of humans making us feel a little safer to, you know, we get in it and we're like, okay, like all of that other stuff was just chatter. It was just white noise. Like it was just distracting me from really, you know, knowing myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do we do that? I mean, I very rhetorically, but I think it's, you know, we're trying, we're really trying, and I will so much self-reflection onto every generation. It's the start, or it's at least a start. Whatever gives people some level of self-reflection, whatever allowance that is at whatever age, like. I think if there is if there's a gift that can be given to us in life, it's that. And, you know, for some of us, it happens early. For others, it never happens. But I think for a lot of people, it happens in their lifetime, or like higher levels of it. And I would like to see that. I would like to see that get accelerated generationally. I think that's a goal.
Yeah. How do you feel that, or do you feel that your own relationships, your partnership with Caitlin has improved, been impacted, bettered from doing your show?
I would love to hear her answer. I would say improved. I'll say this. Part of the reason that the show is so transparent with the host is, number one, it's something that I've wanted. I've wanted people in media, you know, even people that hold high positions of power, like a news anchor, even though this isn't their job, to be like, I was really nervous when they hired this new young newscaster. Like I'm now getting old, whatever it is, like some level of reflection there. That would mean a lot for me to hear something like that. But so that was one thing. But the other thing too is that, especially with season 1, there's a lot of owning up. There's a lot of stories involving my own life, and we continue throughout the show to have personal stories. Part of the goal is, like, you say it, you claim it publicly, you got to kind of hold yourself to that now. And the first season especially is about relationships and old relationships, in which I hope, you know, there are things that I'm sharing where, to the viewer as well as this person sharing, it's like, hopefully this guy learned his lesson, and hopefully for sort of Mark as character, that's true. But yeah, I've felt, ideally, I mean, first off, it's an area of connection. It's like, I'm going to share these things that I'm ashamed about, and I'm going to do it in a way that hopefully it feels it's universal. Like you've experienced, you've questioned these things too. That's success. That feels like success to me. But the other thing too is just personally, it's like, oh shit, I've talked about this in my old relationships. I have to break this pattern now. It has been publicly documented. And I am, as well, my partner, not only just in our interpersonal communication. She's heard this expressed publicly. So now, like, if I'm withholding or whatever it is, like, it's out there. I got to get better. I'm sort of, there's something that's, and I don't mean in a way that's vain. It's just like, if I'm this, even like a small microcosm of media, of like a public figure of talking about, masculine insecurities and accountability. It's like in my own personal life, I got to continue what I'm expressing, continue that learning pattern and being better at it. So I think so. I definitely think partnership in general has just helped me be a much, much, much better person and has added to that self-reflection. And I think long-term partnership, it's really helped. Caitlin's she's I can't sing her praises enough as just a human being, and as somebody who is one of the few people I know in the world and in my life who is somebody who's like, nope, that wasn't cool what you just said. I want to hear where you're coming from. But then also offers the highest level of praise and love and as well grace towards people, and keeps trying to challenge herself. So when you have somebody like that, it becomes, regardless of the kind of show you're making, it holds you to I think a high level of like just getting betterness.
Yeah. I love that. That's so nice.
Yeah.
When I heard you saying like, you're kind of like this project, Other Men Need Help, being this mirror for yourself in a way, right? And it's like, it's out there. Now I got to hold myself accountable. I thought to myself, like, even that is in a way a presentation, right? Because you're like, this is the person that I want to be, this is the person that I'm striving for. And I think that's, on one hand, beautiful, and we should all be striving for bettering ourselves and improving ourselves always, right? On the other side of that, it could be a challenge, right? It could be something that's, I know for me, I'll just speak for me, like, I'm the quote unquote empathy guy, right? Like I have to empathy is my perfection. I have to be perfect at empathy now. So I like, sometimes I'll like hear myself say that and I'm just like, no, that's not true. You're still this fallible fuck up that is striving for improving that. Do you feel that at all?
I do. I do. And I give myself credit for changes, I think, more in my life now.
Good.
Changes and growth. And, I also realize that like I'm doing a show in which I can also claim whatever, like I am controlling the narrative of like this show going out there, so at the end of the day, the only people, like, let's say even in my personal life, like Caitlin and myself, we're the ones that know whether or not, I'm holding myself to like what I'm putting out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. Like the show has been, this conversation about creativity and even looking ahead about the next few seasons, what I love, and I also love about this medium because of its I'm going to use the word creative affordability. And I don't inherently mean that podcasting is cheap. I don't at all, actually. It can be, a very expensive medium. But I do think as a medium, there is, especially if you're doing it independently, there's a high level of creative affordability of things you can just like I want to try this. I really want to try this thing. And the lovely thing about finishing the season and going to the next season is, and doing the brainstorming now, is I'm sitting at the table in the morning and going, what in my life is troubling me about, and we'll limit it to just about being a man. Mm-hmm. If we were to make this, we're making this show that on the surface is about gender. What in my life right now do I want to, and using this platform, kind of use as a way to talk about in my personal life, but sort of examine and try to grow from. And I love that. And I think that has been a little bit freeing to me, is that like, it's not trying to manufacture a perfect person where it's like, after 6 seasons, Mark Pagán will be the man who doesn't need help. It's like, which I think there's a lot of shows and there's a lot of content in media just in general that's so prescriptive. It's like this reality show after 30 days, so-and-so is going to so-and-so because of so-and-so, and it's like, and I do love those shows. I love makeover shows and all of those things. But the reality is, and it's such a nice compact narrative that we want to live with that after 5 days, like with Queer Eye. I love Queer Eye.
Oh,
I
so
think
good.
It's just a great show. And what I'm about to say is in no way trying to demerit it. But, I don't think they're aware of it. They probably do acknowledge it in episodes that I'm not thinking of, but it's like, yeah, they realize like after 5 days, there's the 5 days that we spend with this person. And then, is that person going to maintain that routine? Is that person going to maintain, what they need to do? So I think that's where I come from, like the show and in my personal life now, is that if I'm doing a show where I can have the creative flexibility to talk about my life or use it as or maybe not even talk about my personal life, but be like what I'm interested in talking about. I'm interested in, like right now, I don't know whether this is going to become a season. And I do think I can very much relate it to masculinity, but I think it's very open. It's not related to gender in a lot of ways, is language. I am having a really, really hard time. The fact that I did not grow up speaking Spanish, and the way that's shown up through even in my life right now in insecurities, and the way that's related to identification, not only culturally, but as a man, and also things I'm associating with language and power, language and assimilation, language and relationships, and there's just a whole bunch of things. So it's like going to, like I would like to, in my life, I'd like to improve at getting better at language, but the goal of doing a season, if it becomes a season of Other Men Need Help, it's not that at the end of the season and beyond, it'd be like, well, Mark speaks perfect Spanish now, or he speaks perfect Caribbean Spanish, or he's going to continue. It's that like, we have this as a place to talk about it, connect with others, and then maybe holding the level of accountability is that like, I can keep having conversations about it. Yeah. And if there's any damage that I've done because of my insecure reaction, then I can point to it and be like, keep learning from that,
I love that.
So, yeah.
So right now you're in the process of, obviously season 3 just ended. In the process of just brainstorming season 4.
Yeah. We've got a number, of course, with any of the seasons while we're making it, we come up with ideas and things that get put aside. So we have some old ideas that we're looking at. And I will say that is something that we are floating in terms of an idea. I'm really curious about language. I'm very curious about first, second generation people in diaspora of all kinds of places. And those are, I'm just trying to figure out how we would tell that story and whether that's right for other men. But yeah, that's where we're at the drawing board right now and looking at ideas. And also we're like this phone call that I got this morning. We're really interested in people pitching. It doesn't have to be a season pitch. It's very rare that we get something like that, but like, hey, I've got something I want to talk about, or I got a story idea, or maybe it's not my story, but have you guys considered this? And
nice.
Yeah.
Have you, and forgive me if I don't know, because I haven't listened to all the episodes, but have you done one specifically about men's mental health?
We've done, sort of like the phone call this morning. I think it's okay if I can be transparent about it. A friend of mine called me, and it was really out of the blue, but a mutual friend of ours lost his father last year and is now a year in, managing grief that shows up, and, the grief and my friend asked a similar question. It's like, I've listened to the show because I don't think you guys have done specifically a season or an episode about grief, men dealing with grief. And I was like, no, not truly, like this is what this is about, but it's not far out of our wheelhouse and definitely something we consider. With mental health, it's sort of one of those things where it's like, we haven't specifically dealt with it, but it's like, I always feel like isn't that in every episode? Like I
Yeah,
know my own personal, my personal life, but
Yeah.
we did one episode at the end of the first season that deals with it more directly. It's a very essayist episode and it's pretty short, but it's that one's a little bit more blunt about mental health. And then I think that's it in terms of anything explicitly.
Got it. Oh, just curious. Let's talk about empathy heroes, Mark. So we always wrap up the show talking about the people in our lives who are empathetic, compassionate, feely people. I'm going to go first to give you a moment to think about yours. So my empathy hero this week is former President Barack Obama. I'm actually listening to his book right now, A Promised Land. It's like 30 hours of listening time. And 30 hours of listening to him talk is just, is just a dream. And it's such a good book. It's really just a kind of a history of before he got elected and his, he's like very early on in his first term. And I'm like 15 hours in, and it just, I don't know. I'm feeling nostalgic. I'm feeling inspired. I'm even feeling inspired to just like learn more about our history and our political history and things like that. Just be more involved in that way. And I miss him, and he continues to inspire. And so I recommend A Promised Land and Barack Obama. I call him Barack, just Barack. We're on a first name basis. Is my empathy hero this week. How about you?
Well, I'm going to give, if it's okay, I think in line with other men, I'm going to give two examples, but one of them is a very, very, very everyday example, very like minor thing. The goal of other men, I think the goal in my life too, is to celebrate the quiet moments of dignity, quiet moments of connection, quiet moments of empathy. And this is from a few years ago, but I've thought about this recently. So that's why I'm bringing it up. I was working at an arts organization up until 2 years ago, and I had a frustrating day. I can't really remember what the day was. But a frustrating day. I must have been wearing it a little bit on my face. And I came into the building maybe from lunch. It was midday. I came into the building and I got into the elevator. The elevator only went 2 floors. And I had a colleague that was in the elevator. He just held the elevator door for me. And I hopped in. And we didn't really sort of like, we have a little banter here and there, but nothing really. We never really talk. And I wasn't huffing and puffing. I was like, oh, thanks for holding the door. And I don't remember exactly, but like the elevator ride was short. And he just looked at me and he goes, "You all right?" And I looked at him and go, "I'm not, thank you." And he goes, "I get it, man. I get it." And he gave the ellipsis, like, we can talk about it, we can go. But it was like, there was something so nonverbal where I acknowledged like that took the weight off my day by you seeing me. And then I also know you just offered a bridge to, if I want to get off this elevator and sit and talk with you, that it's there.
Wow.
And it was all done with like, and that's the other thing. It's like, it was hyper masculine.
Yeah, no, it's like, okay, cool, okay, bro. Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's also an older man. There was something very nice about sort of like this or hand on the shoulderness of it. So that's something I've been thinking about recently. In terms of a public figure, the other person I've been thinking about recently is Father Greg Boyle, who runs Homeboy Industries.
Oh yeah.
In Los Angeles. We're packing up our apartment to move, and I've got his book, Tattoos of the Heart, on the Heart. And it's another book that, along with Brene Brown, like I read that and it just guts me. It just it just makes me cry. And like it is such profound teaching of like humanity offering dignity to everybody, and then like people finding it in themselves. And it is, when I'm having rough time, I've reread it a few times. It's like, it really it restores so much hope. It's a very painful book, because he's been working in the, with gangs, and I think in East LA for years and years, decades and decades. So he's seen so many people die, but it is overall, the portrait is of dignity, compassion, and ways of continuing to ask yourself and find that, even for somebody who's supposed to be this public figure of he's Franciscan. Anyway, I forget the categories of.
That's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I've thought about him recently. I'll probably start reading it again with the winter months, getting into quarantine again.
I love that. Two lovely examples of empathy heroes. And I know of him, and I know of Homeboy, of course. But I didn't realize he had a book. I'll have to check that out. That sounds amazing.
The first one, he's written at least two, and the first one, Tattoos. They're both good, but I'd recommend the first one, Tattoos on the Heart. It's really, it's quite gutting in a good way.
I love a gutting. I love an emotional gutting from time to time. Yeah. Well, Mark, this was fun. Thank you for connecting and being on You Me Empathy. Where can the listeners connect with you, like online, and listen to Other Men Need Help and all that?
Yeah, you can find wherever folks listen to podcasts. Our show exists there. We're talking now in late 2020, so we're taking a little bit of a hiatus, but we will have some bonus stuff on the feed. New episodes showing up in 2021, and we'll have a new season. But please go listen to the catalog. Otherwise, I'm around the social sphere. So I'm on Twitter at the Mark Pagán. On Instagram, you can find Other Men Need Help as well at any of your local social media broadcast channels. You can find us. Yeah,
I love it. Well, thank you for being on You Me Empathy. It was a treat, and I the vast majority, I think, of guests on this show are women, and people who identify as women, and it is nice to have a fellow feely man on the show from time to time, like yourself. So thank you.
I appreciate the designation and the invitation, and it was great to have a chance. This as an opportunity to get to know you as well.
Yeah, likewise. Well, listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.